Namaste, my friends. Welcome to Jack Colley's Black Book. This is episode 34, and we are continuing to unpack all the little notes and little scribbles that I put on page 4 of my Black Book. And I think we're going to be done in probably a few episodes with at least page 4. And then I think I'm going to, I may take things in a little bit different direction. I don't know. We'll see. One of the things on page 4 that I was getting at, because I was talking about judging, and in the past several episodes have been on judging, attaching value to people, and one of the elements of page 4 was the idea of this term Christian that we throw around. I live in a community where there is, some people, and I don't know if it's joking or if they're serious, but some people will say that in this particular area where I live, we have the highest number of churches per capita. And that could very well be true. I have been to other cities and certainly cities in other countries that I just don't see the number of churches that we seem to have in this particular area. And when people talk to you and they introduce themselves or they want to know more about you for the first time, usually one of the first questions is, what do you do? And I think that's a pretty standard answer. What job do you do? What's your vocation? What do you do for, society? What is your function as a citizen? I don't know. It's kind of depressing, I guess, that that's the first thing they want to know about you, when I think that there are so many more important things that you have in your life. But maybe that's just a safe first question. Often the second question, and I just witnessed this in a restaurant, about a week ago. Often the second question is, where do you go to church? And a lot of times the question is not like, do you go to church? There's just kind of this assumption with some people, like, where do you go to church? And there's another question that sometimes I get asked, and I gotta tell you, this is kind of some disclosure here. This question is one of the most, it's not a difficult question. Well, it might be a difficult question to answer. It's almost a question that when I get asked this, I just feel awkward because I don't know how to respond. And sometimes people will say, are you a Christian? Because there's an assumption that, chances are, and I guess statistically, chances are, if you go up to somebody on the street in our community, that if you say, are you a Christian, they're probably going to say yes. We have so many people that will say, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. And yet they can be the most vulgar of politicians. They can say, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but I own guns and technology to take human life. And it just doesn't fit. And for whatever reason, we just think it's natural for everybody to say we're a Christian. And I want to investigate this because I really struggle with that. I struggle even right now to say I am a Christian. I think to myself, part of me is embarrassed to say that. Part of me is frustrated. Part of me, if I say that, I want to put out 100 qualifiers out there because, as soon as you say something like that, people just have all sorts of assumptions that they make with such a difficult, challenging question, which is basically, how do you summarize your spiritual life with one word that is such, there's so much variability to what it means to be Christian. Do you go to the Catholic Church? Do you go to the Protestant Church? Did you do, have you lived 13 years of your life as a Quaker, which I did? And that gives you an interesting view of things. Do you go to a Universalist Christian church? There's just so many different facets to that. But in general, there can be some assumptions that you need to be really careful of, at least for me, when somebody says, are you a Christian? Because I don't want somebody assuming my political values. I don't want somebody assuming that I have to be either a Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative. I don't want people making these assumptions that often go with this term Christian. And we're going to unpack that a little bit because I really believe that there are a lot of people out there who, when you are asked if you are a Christian, that you may find it very difficult to answer that question. I know I do. I know I do. It's even information that I hesitate to offer up. If we're having a discussion of spirituality, I find it very difficult to admit that I have Christian thought. Christian, it's like as soon as I use that term, there's just this weird like, how do I tell you exactly, who I am and what my spiritual proclivities are, or whatever. So I want to investigate that. And we start with hard skills versus soft skills. And as I've thought about how to present this to people, I realized that particularly with two religions in particular, of all the major religions, I think in Hinduism and Christianity, there is an emphasis, not in the general public in terms of Christianity, but in terms of the teachings, the Hindu teachings and the Christian teachings, there is a huge emphasis on soft skills. And so I'm going to take this idea that I teach my students and my psychology students about soft skills, the importance of soft skills, and we are going to kind of frame the Hindu lifestyle, if you will, or the Christian lifestyle, if you will. We're going to frame this in terms of soft skills. But we're going to do that by, using yin yang again. I still can't point fingers the opposite way. Using yin yang again, though, we are going to do it this way. In order to understand and appreciate what soft skills are, we are first going to define what they are not. So opposite of soft is hard. So these are hard skills. And what I teach my students is that hard skills are something that you learn. Okay, so let me define some hard skills, and I think that you'll see where I'm going with this. And the goal of this is to begin kind of honing in on what does this term Christian mean, and is it even a term that we want to apply to ourselves? But I can be honest with you, most of the time I don't even want to apply that term to myself because of what it's associated with. Okay, so here are some hard skills, things that you do, things that people can notice about you, things that are in your speech that they pick up on. Being a Republican or a Democrat, being liberal or conservative. These are hard skills. In other words, they are things that you can measure because you can look at a person's life and you can say, okay, you are this or you aren't this. So it's almost like a label, okay? Like a label, you are something. It could be a skill that you learn, all right? How to shoot a gun versus how to administer CPR. Those are two skills that you have to learn. They have very different outcomes, and you might be able to see where I'm going to be going with this, but those are hard skills. Here's a hard skill, the Muslim practice of praying 5 times a day. You can see it happening. 5 times a day, a Muslim will bow, face east, and pray. I had a student every one of my students has to do 2 interviews with me. And it's just a chance for them to get to know a professor and for a professor to get to know them, to kind of see them more, the side of us that is beyond the academic relationship. And I was meeting with this female student who was Muslim, and she was telling me about the Muslim practice of praying the adhan. I think, I don't know if I said that correctly, but it's adhan or something, adhan. And she was telling me how 5 times a day she does this, and it's a chance to kind of recalibrate for the next part of the day. And actually the way that she described it was really quite beautiful in my mind that she would take this time to kind of recalibrate and remind herself to be good for the next section of the day. I really liked it. What's interesting is that, again, to my knowledge, to do this in public or to do this at a mosque is what Islam teaches, I believe. Interestingly enough, gosh, I'm going on a bunny trail here. Interestingly enough, Christians praying in public is something that I just kind of scratch my head about, because there's teachings, the rabbinical teachings of Jesus, that say don't pray in public. Go into your room, close the door. It's a very private thing. It's a little bit different than Islam, and yet, again, the other day at the same restaurant, I also saw a couple of people, and they were praying for their food in public, and I don't know if it's right or wrong. It just kind of it's just kind of interesting, though, to see somebody doing something where the rabbinical teachings of Jesus say, no, do it this way. But anyway, so yeah, how you vote, anything with specific steps is a hard skill. I remember growing up, there was the salvation prayer. Again, and it was, there was a formula. You had to admit you were a sinner. Again, it's the whole, another one of my frustrations here. It's the whole institutionalized guilt. You don't measure up. You're somehow imperfect. Because we got to remind you all the time that you're not perfect and you don't measure up, and so on and so forth. The institutionalized guilt, I think, sometimes really frustrates me. But you admit you're a sinner, and then you believe a certain thing, and then you believe that Jesus died for your sins, and you go through 3 or 4 steps, and you proclaim something, and all of a sudden, somehow you're magically saved through this hard skill. And nothing is often said about, well, how does that look once you're saved? What distinguishes a saved person from an unsaved person? Which, in the Christian tradition, at least traditionally when I was growing up, that really meant, are you going to heaven or are you going to hell? Please, most of you who, if you know me or you've listened to a few of the previous episodes, you know that I do not believe in heaven and hell. I think that they are, I think they're kind of ridiculous sentiments. And there's a few episodes ago that I kind of expressed why I would believe that. But moving on here, fasting is another one. The religious practice of not eating for some time, so that when you desire something, when you're hungry, when you have a craving, you deny yourself that craving so that you can focus on something different, which I think is a beautiful practice. But again, the Christian tradition would say, don't tell people that you're fasting. Keep that private. It's nobody's business. This is your thing between you and your God, what you're doing here. So those are all hard skills. It's being a surgeon. It's being a trash collector. It's being a teacher. It's being anything that requires a manager, a waiter, a student. It's anything that is skill oriented, where you have to do certain steps and you have to do certain things. Those are all hard skills. Next time, we're going to introduce soft skills. So hopefully you have a good idea what hard skills are. Next time, we look at soft skills, and then, so I guess I'll see you next time. All right. Namaste, my friends.